Welcome to this track guide for the Okayama Full Circuit. Located in the southern part of Japan, this circuit features some tricky fast corners as well as some very tight ones. The Pacific Grand Prix was held back here in 1994 and 1995, with Ayrton Senna on pole position in 94, David Coulthard in 95 and Michael Schumacher winning both times. For this track guide we're going to be using the Formula Renault 2.0 on iRacing, and we start with a lap on board using the VR headcam. So as we cross the start line, we're obviously at full throttle and we're on the left hand side of the circuit. The first corner is a medium speed tightening right hander. We're all the way to the left, braking pretty late and trailing the brakes on in to the first part of the corner, down to third gear. Trying to really maximise the width of the track at this point, we're just off the throttle briefly on the way into turn 2 and then really using all of the exit curb on the way out of the corner. What follows now is just some gentle curves where we pick our way between each apex in the shortest possible line before we head into Atwood curve, which begins tight and then opens up onto the longest straight on the whole circuit. For this point we're just obviously maximising the engine revs in each gear, trying to stay in each gear for as long as possible to gain as much power as we can, and looking for our braking point, which is way in the distance. When we eventually arrive there we're going to be braking hard, getting all the way down to second gear using that inside curb, before moving over to the right hand side for these two 90-degree left-handers. You can actually use quite a lot of curb on the exit here because they're reasonably flat even in a single seater. Same on the exit of the second 90-degree left. We now have two hairpins, a left-hand hairpin and a right-hand hairpin. They're both second gear and they're both very slow. We don't use the full width of the track here, and you'll see that in some of the later laps I'm going to show you, and that's simply because we don't have time to get all the way to either side. Final two corners, fast, in fact absolutely flat out right-hander, followed by a corner where you need a couple of downshifts but it's still very high speed, using all the curb on the exit and back onto the start-finish straight. So that's a lap on board with the VR headset. Now let's take a look at the same lap but from slightly higher up, from a static camera on the Rollbar. So here we go then, the exact same lap from the Rollbar camera. I've also zoomed in on the dashboard display so you can see exactly what gear we're in. Important to get a good exit onto the start-finish straight, and from that point onwards we're just staying on the left-hand side and just changing up through the gears at the appropriate time, 6th gear being the highest, and then firmly on the brakes, trailing them into the first corner. Using a little bit of curb seems to help. We're then going to move all the way to the right-hand side, a little lift, maybe just brush the brakes before we turn into turn 2. And then into these sweeping corners where we just pick the straightest possible line between each apex. This next corner is absolutely crucial because it leads onto the longest straight on the circuit, so it's important to get the car really tight to the initial part of the corner and never run too wide until you're actually on the straight at the end of the corner. At this point we're now thinking about the braking point for the hairpin at the end of this straight. We know we're going to be changing down from 6th all the way down to second gear, and about now we're firmly on the brakes. I actually lock the inside brake on the way into this corner and maybe lose half a tenth. On the exit we don't really use the full width of the track because there's not enough time. We want to get to the apex of the first left-hander, use all the curb on the exit, apex of the second left-hander, and once again using all the curb on the exit. As we approach the first of the final two hairpins, we turn in early whilst we're on the brakes, minimum speed right at the middle of the corner there, so we don't want to turn in late. And the same again, minimum speed in the middle of the second hairpin, and then we can be early on the power using the full width of the track on the exit. Now it's an early turn into this flat-out right-hander, using the curb, a brake, down 2 gears, and once again touching the curb on the inside before blending all the way onto the green painted area on the exit of the final corner. And we cross the line to begin another lap of the Okayama circuit. For the final run, we're going to use a camera above the car, looking directly down from on top. With this view, you can really accurately see the position of the car on the approach to each corner and how important it is to really maximise the width of the track. We're going to pause at various points. So at turn 1 you can see I'm on the white line before I turn in to this medium speed right-hander, changing down to third gear by around about now, and once again using the full width of the curb on the inside. On the exit here I don't quite make it all the way to the white line, but I certainly do on the right-hand side, ready for this fast sweeping left-hander. It's again important to really maximise the width of the track, using all the curb on the inside, and then full throttle on the exit. This next section we don't really need to pause on, this is just the easily flat out sweeping series of rights and lefts, before the really tight hairpin which leads onto the long straight. Important to be tight to the inside and never really let the car run too wide until around about now, once we start to really emerge onto the straight. This next section is just very simple. We're just taking the shortest possible line to the braking point of the hairpin at the end of the straight. But again, we're going to see that the white line is exactly where we need to place the car before we then turn into the hairpin. Absolutely as tight as possible to the inside. And then we have a couple of points where we don't use the full width of the track, like here. There simply isn't enough time to get all the way to the right hand side, and you'll be having to compromise your speed too much in order to do that. We use the full width of the track on the following two 90-degree left-handers and on the exit, and then we approach the first of the two final hairpins. It's an early turn-in, minimum speed about now, right at the apex, so we do not turn in late because the following straight is too short. And you'll notice at this section we have to compromise by not using the full width of the track, as the positives of a better entry are outweighed by the negatives of having to go further. On the exit, we want to be all the way to the edge of the track, ready to turn in early for the penultimate corner, where we use all of the curb, then braking pretty early for the final corner in order to not run wide, using the curb and using a lot of curb on the exit. And that completes our third run through of the Okayama circuit. I hope this has been useful to you, and if it has, please remember to like and subscribe.